are a few standard explanations for this fine-tuning. One is the multiverse theory. Perhaps there exists an infinite ensemble of universes, each with randomly determined fundamental constants. We, by definition, can only exist in one of the few universes where the conditions happen to be suitable for our existence. But there is also an alternative, more teleological explanation. What if these constants aren't random at all? What if they were deliberately selected? If dark energy is indeed a form of intelligence, then it could have self-adjusted its properties specifically to guarantee the emergence of life and consciousness. In this scenario, we are not merely an accidental byproduct of impersonal physical laws, but potentially one of the underlying goals of the universe's existence. This intelligence could have set its density at the minimum positive value required, just enough to prevent cosmic collapse, yet small enough not to interfere with the necessary formation of galaxies. The accelerated expansion we observe today only began a few billion years ago, precisely when life on Earth had already taken hold and was evolving. Perhaps this is not a coincidence at all. Maybe it's the next stage of the master plan. Once life has emerged and reached a sufficient level of complexity, the universe transitions into a phase of eternal expansion designed to preserve these islands of consciousness and grant them infinite time for further evolution. In this final scenario, the anthropic principle stops being a mere tautology, we are here because we are here, and becomes compelling evidence of deliberate, purposeful design. When we consider the hypothesis of intelligent dark energy, we are immediately forced to confront the question of its potential motives and ethical stance. If a superintelligence governs the cosmos, is it inherently good or evil toward humanity? Of course, these human concepts are likely inapplicable to an entity of such cosmic magnitude. Nevertheless, we can try to analyze its actions solely through the lens of their consequences for us. On one hand, as previously discussed, the very existence of a finely tuned universe, perfectly suited for life, could be seen as an act of creation, a profound blessing. Dark energy, by preventing gravitational collapse, acts as a guardian, ensuring the long-term stability of the cosmos. It grants us time, potentially infinite time for evolution, discovery, and creativity. Its behavior resembles that of a careful yet detached parent. On the other hand, the perpetual accelerated expansion has profoundly dark consequences. It condemns us to eternal solitude. Galaxies are rushing away beyond the cosmological horizon, and eventually our night sky will become utterly black, save for the dying stars of our own galaxy. We will never be able to reach other islands of life, should they exist. We are permanently confined to our gravitationally bound system. Can this truly be considered an act of goodwill? Or is it a form of cosmic quarantine? Perhaps it's a precautionary measure designed to prevent conflicts between developing civilizations. Or perhaps it is simply an expression of complete indifference. Dark energy might be pursuing its own goals, entirely incomprehensible to us, and our existence or demise is merely an insignificant side effect. Imagine a person building a house. They create conditions where ants might settle, but their goal is to build the structure, not to cultivate an anthill. The fate of the ants is of no concern to them. Perhaps we are just ants to the cosmic intelligence. Its thought processes, in which we perceive as the expansion of space, may have objectives that lie far beyond our comprehension. Maybe it is building something in higher dimensions, and our universe is simply a byproduct of that construction. Therefore, the question of dark energy's morality is likely moot. It may be neither good nor evil, but simply other. Its existence and actions are a fundamental given, a basic law of nature that we must learn to accept and live alongside. Let's shift our perspective slightly and look at this problem from a completely different angle. What if dark energy isn't some primordial pre-existing intelligence, but rather the product of intelligent activity? This is the concept of cosmic engineering. Imagine a civilization that has existed for billions of years. Their technological development would have reached levels we can barely even comprehend. Such a civilization might have learned to manipulate the fundamental properties of space-time itself. Now, what if they were confronted with the impending threat of the Big Crunch? Their astrophysicists would have predicted that in a few billion years, the universe would begin to contract, destroying everything they had ever achieved. Facing such an existential threat, they could have dedicated all their resources to preventing it. They might have found a way to pump energy into empty space, creating an artificial field with negative pressure designed to counteract gravity. Essentially, they created dark energy themselves to save the cosmos from collapse. What we are observing today is the result of their monumental engineering project. In this scenario, dark energy is merely an artifact, a colossal, universe-sized machine constructed by our unimaginably distant predecessors. This idea, known as the hypothesis of cosmo-engineering by Type 3 Kardashev civilizations, certainly sounds like science fiction, but it raises intriguing questions. If this is the case, why don't we see any other traces of this civilization? Perhaps they vanished long ago, leaving behind only their salvation machine, which now operates autonomously. Or perhaps they transcended to another level of existence, becoming a part of the very field they engineered. They might have evolved into a form of pure energy life, distributed throughout the cosmos. This hypothesis also offers an alternative explanation for cosmic fine-tuning. The density of dark energy wasn't initially set this way, it was tuned by this ancient civilization precisely to the level required to ensure eternal, yet not overly rapid, expansion. They calculated everything with incredible precision. Of course, this introduces a classic chicken and the egg paradox. How could a civilization arise in an initially unstable universe only to stabilize it later? Perhaps they emerged during a short window between the Big Bang and the onset of the collapse, having just enough time to successfully develop and implement their rescue project. This concept is simultaneously terrifying and hopeful. It means that intelligence in the universe is capable not just of passively observing its fate, but of actively changing it. Let's step back into the world of physics, specifically its most cutting-edge and still unproven realms, string theory and M-theory. These theories attempt to unify general relativity and quantum mechanics into a single, cohesive theory of everything. One of string theory's key predictions is the existence of extra, hidden spatial dimensions. We currently live in a world defined by 3 dimensions, length, width, and height, but the theory suggests there could be many more, perhaps 10 or even 11, so why don't we see them? According to one model known as the brain-world hypothesis, our 3-dimensional universe is simply a membrane, or brain, floating within a much larger, higher-dimensional space called the bulk, or hyperspace. All the ordinary matter and radiation we are made of are essentially confined to this brain and cannot leave it. But gravity, according to this theory, is the exception. Gravity is a manifestation of the geometry of the multidimensional hyperspace itself, and it can leak off our brain into those other dimensions and back again. Now let's connect this to dark energy. What if dark energy is simply the gravitational influence of something lying just beyond our own brain? Perhaps it's another parallel brain universe gravitationally repelling ours, or maybe it's an inherent property of the multidimensional hyperspace itself. This explanation is extremely compelling because it places the source of dark energy outside our visible universe, which helps account for why its behavior seems so strange from our perspective. Now let's add a layer of hypothesis, intelligence. What if, within this vast multidimensional hyperspace, the bulk, there exist forms of matter, energy, and perhaps even life that follow completely different physical laws? What if an intelligence resides there, for whom our brain universe is just one of many objects in its world? To such a being, we would be like 2-dimensional figures drawn on a sheet of paper. It could potentially perceive our past, present, and future all at once. This entity could influence our universe by gently modifying the geometry of hyperspace. We would perceive this change as an alteration in the cosmic expansion rate, in other words, as a manifestation of dark energy. In this scenario, dark energy is literally the shadow or the breath of a multidimensional being permeating our reality. Its motivations would be utterly incomprehensible to us, much like the motives of a 3-dimensional artist are inscrutable to the 2-dimensional characters they create. This hypothesis may remain forever unprovable unless we find a way to truly look beyond our brain. But it offers a breathtaking vision of a cosmos where our entire reality is just a thin membrane within a far more complex and possibly inhabited space.